What's going on, guys? I am very small, and as you can see, we just threw up some slides here to talk about BDS versus Dignitas. There's a lot of text on these screens, that's why I am very, very small in my little bubble here. But we're going to talk about which team is more dominant or was more dominant. What is the greatest team of all time, basically? So 2020, 2021 BDS versus the 2017 to 2018 Dignitas squad. Obviously, they were Gale Force first, but we're just going to call them Dignitas for this video. So there's obviously some answers that I think a lot of people have. I think some people will be like, well, BDS obviously no land, so, whatever. So who cares what they're doing? There's no other region. Who cares? Dignitas, they have 2 world titles, yada, yada, yada. I think more people will probably be on the side of Dignitas, obviously, because of those world championship titles, but we'll see as we go on through here. Let me know which team you think is more dominant or the greatest team of all time down below. Now, obviously, I think the correct answer, which we'll get to a little bit more later, is BDS is not the greatest team of all time until they win a championship. That's fine. But let's talk about what they've done. What is actually on their resumes? So we'll start with BDS if I have the right thing on. There you go. BDS first. So 2020 to 2021 BDS results. These are all RLCS results. 2 things I want to mention here. We are not going to include the grid, because grid, weeklies, very small prize pools, mostly scrim stuff. They almost feel like the old days of when some online weeklies that were happening. Not include any of that for Dig as well. Didn't want to actually try and find any. But obviously, grid's a little bit more prize money than those, but it's nothing compared to RLCS, so we didn't include those. And if you want to include them, feel free. BDS still not that bad of a record. They're winter champions, and then obviously they won every grand finals that they were in the fall or winter grid, so keep that in mind. But we're not going to include them here. It does hurt their results a little bit, and the comparison will probably be a little bit more in favor of Dignitas, but it's up to you if you want to include that. The other thing we will not include is BTS, because BTS, honestly, is an incredibly small price. It was like $25,000 for the actual main event. And obviously, it's during the off-season. They're mostly just playing for fun, so I didn't include that. BDS came in last in BTS when they played last December. So we're not including those 2. Now let's go over the rest. RLCSX Fall Regionals, they got 2 first-place finishes and 1 third-place finish with a 25-2 overall record. Then the Major, first place, perfectly undefeated with 6 wins. Then we go to Winter Regionals. Again, 2 firsts, 1 third, 14-3 overall record. Obviously, there was a little bit less games happening in the Winter Split. And then you go to the Winter Major, a first place, a 4-0 overall record there. Moving on, Spring Regional, another first place, 8-0 overall record. Obviously, BDS, insane. Absolutely insane. Their overall record, 9 tournaments, 7 wins, a 57-5 record. Absolutely nuts. What BDS is doing in their region is unquestionably the greatest thing we've ever seen in a region in this certain time frame. We're going to continue here, and we'll talk about Dignitas side. And then we'll go over pros and cons of both of these guys as we talk about it into the direct comparison. So, moving up, we'll go over to Dignitas. 2017 to 2018. A lot of text here, obviously. Dignitas did a lot of stuff. But I think the one thing people always forget about Dignitas is they did great in RLCS, but other major lands, which at that time were really big deals, they didn't do that well. So we're going to talk about it all. So RLCS Season 4, first place in region and Worlds. And obviously, there was other events before RLCS Season 4 when they made a roster where they didn't win anything, but they kept coming in second. We're not including that. We're including when they're dominant began, because BDS as well, there was probably some other off-season tournaments that they didn't do as well. They obviously won one of them, but still, it's not worth it. When we talk about the greatest team, we're talking about when they become the greatest, and then how long does that streak continue. So that's where I'm going off of. So BDS, we start with Fall Regional 1, and for Dignitas, we start with RLCS Season 4. So they went 5-2 in league play. Actually, I think the 3rd seed there. 3-0 through the regional championship, 4-0 in the world championship, 12-2 overall. Obviously, first place in region and worlds. I'm counting those as 2 separate tournaments for this example here. Then Gnarly 1, we're excluding that because Gnarly 1 was a really weird tournament. There was a lot of bad travel stuff where they came in the night before, then they couldn't warm up at all as well before that tournament. It wasn't really planned all that well. Gnarly 2 was much better, so we'll include that. Gnarly 1 we won. I think they came in 5th, I believe. I think they lost the Classics, actually, so, we definitely taking that one off. So moving on, we got E-League 2017. Second place, they lost to G2, 4-1 overall. Then you move on to DreamHack Leipzig, which was in January of the following year, in 2018. I believe January, maybe February, somewhere around there. They got fifth place. They lost to actually Pashy's team. I can't. What was the name? I had it up over here. Let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, it was Guess Who. And Guess Who? I believe was that when Freaky was with them. Yeah, Pashy, Freaky, and Fairy Peak. So Freaky, he's always around. Watch out for him. So fifth place, they went 3-1 overall there. They won their first group where there wasn't enough teams, so they only won one match. Then they went 2-0 in their following group. But they finished 3-1 overall. Losing, I wanna keep this in mind, to a European team. Moving on, RLCS Season 5, a first place in region and worlds, a 6-1 league play, 2-0 regional championship, 6-1 world championship. Justin, 0-second goal, no one cares because Turbo scores 14 seconds later or whatever it was. 14-2 overall. So, another world championship title in the books for Dignitas. Obviously, pretty important stuff. World championship titles is what you want. Moving on, Gnarly 2 happened about a month and a half after that, I think, somewhere around there. They got first place, 4-0 overall, beat Energy once again in that finals, and that one was a little bit better planned, a little bit more warm-ups and all of that stuff. But to be fair, Marky Duda was there on Excel, and like, come on, I'm just saying. I think it was Marky, Niels Cook. Who else was on that team? I don't think I have it up, actually. Oh, no, I do. Let's see. Marky, Niels Cook, and Pondex. Somehow they made it. Somehow. But hey, whatever. And FlyQuest was even there. Prime Thunder, Wonder, and AJ back in the day. So, Gnarly 2, great finish for them. They get the dub there. Season 6, we come back. And so if I missed any tournaments, I don't think I did, but who knows? There was a lot of weird lands going on. Let me know. Just let me know in the comments below, like, if I missed anything for Dignitas or even BDS, like if there was something that maybe should have been included that wasn't. Feel free to throw it down there. So, Season 6, first place in the region for Dignitas, and this was when they just dominated everyone. Undefeated, broke every single record in the book. 2-0 regional championship, so they win their region yet again. And then second in Worlds, 3-2 World Championship record there, losing to Cloud9 twice back-to-back. So 12-2 overall in that one. So every single season of RLCS, 2 losses. It just really was like, you should probably lose those in league play. But it didn't happen this time around, so didn't get that World Championship title. Moving on, E-League 2018. This was in December, the last tournament for this team, and they got third place at a 2-1 overall record. They lost to Cloud9. Weedham Girls beat Cloud9 to win that tournament. So, that's where we sit. 10 tournaments for this great dynasty of a team, 2017 to 2018 Dignitas. 6 wins and a 51-9 record. People are always going to know about those World Championship titles, but they did lose some tournaments here or there as well. So the 10 tournaments include the 3 regional championships. I'm including those as their own tournaments because it kind of is a better comparison to BDS, what they're doing now. So I wanted to add that in there. Now, the last bit that we got to go is a direct comparison between the two teams, BDS and Dignitas. So, BDS 9 tournaments, Dignitas 10 tournaments. So it's a pretty good time to compare these teams based on the tournaments played. BDS, one more tournament coming up, Spring Regional 2. After that, it'll be like, exactly, all right, 10 tournaments for 10 tournaments. They got 7 wins. Dignitas, only 6. Only 6. Then a 57-5 win-loss record, 92% win rate for BDS, 51-9 for Dignitas at 85%. Here's the big one, though. BDS, 0 lands, 0 wins. You can't win a land if it didn't happen, even though you are BDS. So, no lands, no wins for them. 7 lands for Dignitas. And again, this is an important note. They only won 3 of them. They lost 4 of them. They won 3 of them. I think that's a very important point. 2 for 2 in major wins, which I think is the closest that you can get to a LAN, I guess, for BDS. And 2 for 3 world titles for Dignitas in the World Championship right now. Obviously, world titles means a lot more than a major win. That is absolutely for sure. But just wanted to put that in there. Then we excluded Grid and BTS. We excluded Gnarly 1 on the other side for Dignitas. And then the time frame of these teams. BDS August 2020 to March 2021. Obviously, they're still continuing, so we'll see where they land. That's only 8 months of play. September 2017 to December 2018 for Dignitas, 16 months of play. A year and a third, if I did my math right. Yes. And on the other side, so double the time, but that's also just where we are right now in the RLCS ecosystem. So Dignitas, so I think when we look at pros and cons, right? Like Dignitas, on paper, it doesn't look as good until you get down to lands. Lands, very important, obviously. It's against the other region, North America. No one cares about OC or SAM at this point. Well, actually, there was no SAM, but really no one cared about OC. Outside of Energy losing Chiefs all the time. So they only won 3 lands during their dynasty. They had 7 opportunities to do so. Now, 2 of those times, they lost in the finals to a North America team. So I think when you compare those to BDS, you could take those lands off the board, or say 5 for 7 maybe, because if they were only playing their region, they probably would have won 5 of the 7. So you could probably move that number up to 5. On the other side, though, 2 of those lands, one they lost to guess who? Pashy, Freaky, and Fairy Peak, so you can't really say anything about that. The other one they lost to Cloud9, but then Weedham Girls beat Cloud9, so I think you can't really say that they would have won that one either. They might have. Who knows? So that one's a little bit up in the air, but still. So, like, even at best, like, if you're only thinking about in their region, 5 for 7 lands, which obviously is not bad because it's only 2 losses. BDS, 9 tournaments. They have 2 losses as well. So keep that in mind there. So it would be 10 for 8, I guess, overall with the regional championship. So if you think about it in that way, Dignitas, I think, can compare pretty well to BDS when you're talking about just region dominance. Because, again, 2 of those land losses were in the finals against an NA team, which BDS has not even played at all yet. So there's that. The 92% win rate, like, I didn't go through and check, like, how many wins versus losses to EU or NA, but I think Dignitas overall probably has a pretty good record against NA. I think it comes down a little bit. Obviously, 3 of those losses to Cloud9, or actually 3 of those losses are to Cloud9, 1 to G2 in that E-League final. So you can take 4 losses off. But they also beat a bunch of NA teams, too, in these tournaments. So I think it would have to come down a little bit there. I think BDS overall, their record would probably be better, just EU versus EU, or BDS versus EU. So I think they would probably win out on win rate. The tournaments you can kind of match because of what Dignitas, they always have to play NA. But obviously, there's no comparison when you're talking about lands to no lands. But, again, I think people forget with Dignitas, they didn't even win half their lands. And that was even before when they first formed and they lost a bunch of lands. It was like 3 lands where they made it to the finals and lost in all 3 or something. I think it was 3. So keep that in mind as well. So I think, like, Dignitas, you have to bring back a little bit. But at the same time, obviously, they still have done it. BDS has not at all. So that is the big argument. That will always be the argument against BDS. Like, if they win world championships, sure. I think you can call BDS the greatest team of all time, especially if they dominate. But obviously, they still won't have a lot of land wins just because there hasn't been a lot of lands. But at the same time, the one positive is they get to play in a lot more tournaments and they get to excel there. Now, Dignitas, I think, again, a big favor for them. It's a year and 4 months of dominance versus only 8 months for BDS. But I think if you threw Dignitas into this fold, I think there could be question marks about how dominant they could be, about, like, every single week you have to come out and win. And you have to win more than just one game, like in a league play scenario or 2. Like, I think that'll always be an argument to be had. Like, could Dignitas have done this? And, it's very possible that they could have, but who knows? The other, I think, big plus for BDS is this is 3 years later. 3 years later in Rocket League means a lot more people are very good at this game. Because back when Dignitas began this dominance, NA was just a blip on the radar. Europe would dominate them every single Worlds. They didn't really matter all that much. NA, through the time of Dignitas, got better, but they still were not even close to the number 1 region in the world. Right now, I think that's another argument against BDS is, like, people could say, I think NA could be the number 1 region in the world. So it's harder to tell how dominant they are. But they're doing this 3 years later when everyone is so good at this game and there's so many teams that can take you down in one series. When back with Dignitas, there wasn't a lot of teams. Like, it was basically league play teams and that's it. And not even all the league play teams, honestly. Like, back then, there were some teams that were like, oh, how'd they get here? Speaking of gnarly, too. We won't go back to that. But, so I think that's a big pro in BDS's column of, like, to dominate like this later is so much more hard to do than Dignitas. But again, the biggest con, you're not playing NA. You're not playing OC and SAM as well. I'll add them into the conversation. Sure. But they can't do anything about it right now, and that is the big argument there is. BDS versus Dignitas. The greatest team to ever play this game. Do we know right now? Or do we know later? I think is the major question. BDS is obviously in that conversation. Just when do you flip it over to BDS is the question. And I think BDS has to win the Worlds, right? You win the Worlds, you get it, right? But if there's no lands forever, because who knows with this crazy world, then it's like, how do you determine that? I think it's incredibly hard. So we'll see. I think at the end of this season, I think we might have an answer at that point of like, is BDS the greatest ever or are they not? Then, of course, if they begin to do terribly, does that hurt their record or do you only think about them in the 2019 or the 2020 to 2021 BDS? But if in 2022 they're garbage, does that hurt the greatest team of all time? Depends if they make a roster move, I guess. But I would say it does. But so the last thing I'll say, these last 8 months have been insane and has never been done before for BDS. What Dignitas did in 2017 and 2018 has still not been matched yet. But that is the big word, yet. I always tell my kids the power of yet. There's like a bubblegum brain book, about don't quit and all that power yet. I don't know. Go look it up. BDS versus Dignitas. The answers are still not there yet, but I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. So let me know, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.